Hello, Disney fans. In honor of Black History Month, I wanted to talk about The Princess and the Frog. This was the first Disney movie to have an African American heroine. That's saying quite a lot considering how long Disney's been around. It took them that long to get to this point. And it also says a lot because Disney has not always had the best reputation when it comes to handling race. Now, on the surface, this story is a traditional Disney fairy tale. But if you dig a little deeper, there's a lot of actual African American culture and history in this that's really fascinating to explore. Well, the movie starts out appropriately enough with Tiana's mother telling the story of the Frog Prince to Tiana and her best friend Lottie.
Princess was so moved by his desperate plea that she stooped down, picked up the slippery creature, leaned forward, raised him to her lips, and kissed that little frog.
Tiana's mother is there because she's working as a seamstress making new dresses for Lottie. And she's brought Tiana with her, but now in real life at this time, you would not have seen two girls of different races being friends. It simply would not have been tolerated, which is tragic to think of. And it's delightful to see these two little girls having such a friendship, the way they interact with each other. It's funny to see their different reactions to the story, especially knowing how this is going to play out for the two of them. A special mention for Charlotte here, for a special mention for Lottie here. She is a girl who's had everything always handed to her. Her dad is extremely rich. There's never been anything she's asked for in her life that she doesn't get. And yet she still obviously cares for Tiana. And never once during the whole movie does she treat her differently because she's poor or a different race. And that is something that's very special about her. Again, would not have happened in real life at this time, especially, in the South, in Louisiana. But it's heartwarming to see, even if it isn't what really would have been. We do see a bit of realism when Tiana's mother takes her home. They sit at the back of the streetcar, and they're obviously in a poorer section of town. But they have a lot of love in their family, and they still have their dreams. Especially Tiana's dad, who has dreams of opening up his own restaurant. And he explains why food is so important to him.
About good food, it brings folks together from all walks of life. It warms them right up and it puts little smiles on their faces. And when I open up my own restaurant, I tell you, people are going to line up for miles around just to get a taste of my food. Our food. That's right, baby.
Tragically, Tiana's dad doesn't get to live to see his dream come true. He's killed during World War One, and we see that Tiana has taken up his dream and is still working towards that. And we see that her father was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross that's hung by his photograph. This has an extra kick to it because the Distinguished Service Cross was awarded to African Americans because they were not allowed to receive the highest honor in the country of receiving the Medal of Honor, no matter what they did to deserve it.
Don't you worry, Daddy. We'll be there soon.
We see that Tiana works insanely hard. She just falls into bed after finishing one job when the alarm rings, telling her she's got to get up to go to her next job. Everybody around her tells her, you got to do something with your life besides work. And if they're not telling her that, they're outright laughing at her, telling her she can never have her dream. It's not going to happen no matter how hard she works. She's never going to get enough money to buy her own restaurant. Well, she gets her chance, or at least she gets something that speeds up her dream, thanks to a piece of news. Prince Naveen of Maldonia is coming to New Orleans.
Big Daddy.
Oh, Prince Naveen.
Prince Naveen of Maldonia is coming to New Orleans. Oh, I need the bee's knees. Ooh, tell her what you did, Big Daddy. Tell her.
Well, I invited.
Daddy invited the prince to a masquerade ball tonight.
This is great news for Tiana because Lottie wants her to cater the party and pays her enough to get to her goal of having the down payment on the old sugar mill she wants to convert into a restaurant. Tiana is super excited about this, of course, but her mom has a word of caution for her to not get so caught up in that dream that she loses track of what really is important.
All Daddy's hard work means something.
Tiana, your daddy may not have gotten the place he always wanted, but he had something better. He had love. And that's all I want for you, sweetheart. To meet your Prince Charming and dance off into your happily ever after.
Gonna have to wait a little bit because now she can finally get what she's always dreamed of. She is so close to it. And this brings us to one of the really great songs in this movie. There's a lot of awesome songs, but this one's one of my favorites because it is so relatable. Everybody knows what it is to have a dream, no matter what that dream is. And we can all relate to what it would feel like to being that close to finally achieving that.
Almost there. Deep down here, think I'm crazy, but I don't care.
Another thing I love about that song is the little animation shift to show that it's her dream. There's something very special about 2D animation, and this whole movie is so beautifully animated. It was the last 2D animated movie that Disney made, which is pretty sad. I like computer animation. I appreciate all the hard work that goes into making it, but I really hope Disney eventually makes more 2D movies. I'd hate to see that art form be lost. Well, meanwhile, while Tiana's getting her dream, Lottie's dreaming of marrying Prince Naveen and becoming a princess. Prince Naveen has his own issues. His parents have cut him off financially, so the only way he's going to get any money is marry somebody rich like Lottie or get a job. He's not really looking forward to either of those options and is just messing around the streets of New Orleans. That's when he runs into Dr. Facilier, also known as the Shadow Man. Interesting thing about Facilier's name, it comes from the word facile, meaning easy. And Tiana talked earlier about too many people take the easy way. And that's what Facilier tries to do. He lures people into taking the easy way out and ends up trapping them and getting benefit himself. That's what he's going to do with Prince Naveen. Lawrence, Naveen's servant, doesn't trust Facilier, thinking he's a fraud, but Facilier doesn't let that stand, and he starts right away to lure them in.
Don't you derogate or deride. You're in my world now, not your world. And I got friends on the other side.
This leads us into one of the best Disney villain songs. And let's be honest, we all know the villains have the best songs. Or at least a lot of the best songs. This song totally blew me away. And if you do the research behind it and you learn about the symbolism and about the foreshadowing that's going on here, as well as the culture, there is hidden meaning in every line, every piece of animation. I could easily do a half-hour video just analyzing this song. And like I've said in other videos, I do plan to do a, a few videos analyzing different Disney songs, and this is definitely going to be one of them that I do. One important thing that the song brings up that I found interesting is it does differentiate, it does acknowledge that there's a difference between voodoo and hoodoo.
I got voodoo, I got things I ain't even tried. And I got friends on the other side. He's got friends on the other side.
In other words, Facilier is using more than one kind of magic here. Now, I'm going to explain some of the differences between voodoo and hoodoo. Again, that's a whole nother full-length video. The main difference is voodoo is a religion. Hoodoo is not. Both use magic, and I think there's a lot of confusion about that where they're linked together when they are completely different. The big difference, like I said, is voodoo is a religion. Those who practice it worship Bandi, who is basically the same as our god. Bandi actually comes from Bandu, meaning good god. It's the French word for it, and of course in New Orleans, French is spoken a lot. Now, one quick word about my pronunciations here. I've tried to research how different terms are pronounced. I found more than one answer, so if somebody is watching this and you want to comment saying, hey, you're pronouncing this wrong, it should be pronounced this way, please let me know how you think it should be pronounced. Sorry, I'm doing the best I can with having multiple answers here. Now, Bandi is not the person you mainly pray to if you want something done. You talk to Liloa, who are basically the equivalent of angels. They're not angels, but if you think of saints in Christian religions, particularly, for example, Catholicism, if you're familiar with Catholicism, you know if you've lost something, you pray to St. Anthony. If you have a pet that is injured or sick or that you're worried about for whatever reason, you pray to St. Francis of Assisi. Different saints are there for you to help with different things. Loa serve different purposes as well. Now, it's thought that maybe that's who Facilier's friends on the other side is Loa. But now Loa are not evil, and voodoo is not evil. Can a voodoo practitioner use magic to hurt somebody else? Sure, the same as somebody who practices any religion could cause somebody else pain. It would be considered wrong, but yeah, voodoo is not in and of itself evil. I want to be clear on that point. The Loa are not evil, although you do not want to disrespect a Loa, of course. Now, as I said, there's different Loa for different things, and Dr. Facilier's design is based off of a specific Loa. He doesn't represent that Loa, but his design is based on Baron Samedi or Samedi. Samedi. There's more than one pronunciation. Now, Baron Samedi is one of the Loa who deals with death. They're a type of Loa who are referred to as the G'day. As far as I was able to make out the pronunciation. Sorry again if I got that wrong. Now, the G'day are not evil just because they deal with death. And Baron Samedi is not evil, although again you don't want to disrespect him. He's the one who will guide you to where you need to go in the afterlife. He's the one for making sure that the dead don't get brought back as zombies. And if Baron Samedi doesn't want you to die, you're not going to die. So if you have a loved one who you are really concerned about and you practice voodoo, you're going to talk to Baron Samedi and ask that their lives be spared. So even though Facilier is clearly the villain and his design is based on Baron Samedi, again, Baron Samedi is not evil. Although they even have the same skull mask that Facilier is shown wearing at the end of this number. Speaking of the end of this number, this is one of my favorite pieces of animation in this movie. You see it from Naveen's point of view as he is changed into a frog. You actually see Facilier seeming to get taller because Naveen is shrinking. I thought the way that this scene was composed was just absolutely brilliant.
You feel it. You're changing, all right. I hope you're satisfied. But if you ain't, don't blame me. You can blame my friends on the other side.
Meanwhile, Tiana's got problems too. She's finding out that she was outbid for the sugar mill, or at least supposedly she was outbid. The two people she was going to buy it from basically sound like they're just not willing to sell it to an African American woman.
Which is why a little woman of your background would have had her hands full trying to run a big business like that. You know, you're better off where you at.
Now, wait
Tiana has almost no hope left of having her dream come true, and she resorts to wishing on a star the way she did when she was a little girl. Instead of getting her wish the way she expected, she finds Naveen in frog form, which is confusing to her because she just saw who she thought was Naveen dancing with Lottie. Of course, that's actually Naveen's servant Lawrence, who Facilier is manipulating. Because she's telling Lawrence, you get to marry Lottie, you'll get all her money. And meanwhile, Facilier is planning to kill off Lottie's father and take over the city. Tiana doesn't know anything about this at this point, but she's desperate enough to actually try kissing Naveen when he promises that once she turns him back into a prince, he'll make sure she gets the money she needs. The kiss doesn't go the way either of them planned.
Finally, answer.
With the two of them being frogs now, they're chased off into the bayou, where they eventually meet Louis the alligator. And after they tell him that they were turned into frogs by the Saddle Man, by someone who cast a voodoo spell on them, Louis provides the answer to someone who can help them.
Like the kind Mama Odie do. Mama Hootie? Mama Odie. She the voodoo queen of the bayou. She got magic and spells. All kind of hoodoo.
Could you take us to her?
Louis is terrified to go further into the bayou, but he loves to play the trumpet, and he's not going to get the chance to play in any kind of group, being an alligator. They convince him to come with them and take them to Mama Odie, with the idea that he can eventually be turned into a human just like they want to be. This just is another cool song, although it's not my favorite song out of this movie, but it does have a nice melody, and it is fun to hear the characters all talk about their different dreams. Well, further down into the bayou, they meet the Cajun firefly Ray. Ray lets them know that they've been going in the wrong direction. It's kind of up for debate whether Lewis was leading them that way on purpose or accidentally, but either way, it gives us a funny moment.
Louis, Ray here says you've been taking us in the wrong direction.
Listen, I was confused by the topography and the geography and the choreography. And
First rule, the bayou never take direction from a gator.
Ray agrees to take them to see Mama Odie, and this leads us to another song which I'm really hoping they'll include in the new ride that's coming to Disneyland, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. I think this would be a perfect song for that ride.
We gonna take you all the way down. We know where you're going and we're going with you. Taking you all the way. Going down the bayou. Going down the bayou. Going down the bayou. Taking you all.
Things are looking up for Tiana and Naveen, but not so much for Dr. Facilier. He was able to turn Lawrence into Naveen using Naveen's blood, but that blood is drying up in the talisman he was using. So now they have to get Naveen back. Not only does Facilier's plan hinge on this, but he's in debt to his friends on the other side, and he's got to pay them back. Unfortunately, he has to ask them for one more favor if he's going to get Naveen back and be able to succeed at all.
As soon as I dispose of Big Daddy LaBeouf,
I'm running this town.
I'll have the entire city of New Orleans in the palm of my hand.
With the promise of having all the souls in New Orleans, they grant him shadow creatures that go out trying to grab Naveen. While they're still searching for Naveen, he and Tiana are having a few moments that start to show romance developing between them. Up until now, they barely tolerated each other. Now Tiana actually gives him a lesson in cooking. They're all getting hungry by this point, and he's actually impressed that he's doing something. He's never had to do a thing for himself before, and now he's finally learning a skill.
There you go.
You know, I've never done anything like this before.
Really?
All right. But when you live in a castle, everything is done for you.
Naveen really regrets that he never learned how to do anything for himself. But this is one of the things that makes them such a great couple. Naveen's never worked a day in his life, but he knows how to have fun. Tiana is the hardest working person you'll probably ever meet. She works 24/7 non-stop. But she's never learned how to dance, how to have fun, how to do anything relaxing. She teaches Naveen how to work, and he teaches her how to dance during a really great musical number. The scene's really well animated, great music, and one of the things I love about it is it's Ray's love song to Evangeline, a star who he believes is a firefly. This is where the romance really kicks in. And not only do you see Naveen and Tiana fall in love, but you can tell Ray's love for Evangeline, which I'll talk more about later on. But as someone who loves romance, this is a great scene. Just when things are going so well for Tiana and Naveen, that's when Facilier's shadow people find them. Fortunately, they're saved by Mama Odie. Now, Mama Odie is based on Marie Laveau, who was a real-life voodoo queen, and she was sought out by everyone in New Orleans. Rich, poor, black, white, didn't matter. They all knew This woman has power, and if you have a problem, you go to her. There are changes made, like Marie Laveau was not blind while Mama Odie is, but there are a lot of other things where you could tell this is clearly based on Marie Laveau. And it's interesting that they show that magic itself is not evil. Voodoo is not evil. Both Dr. Facilier and Mama Odie practice voodoo. One is clearly evil, one is clearly good. Well, Mama Odie has some good advice for everyone. And that is a major theme of this movie, is the difference between what you want and what you need.
Y'all ain't got to say shit what's wrong with. Y'all want to be human, but you're blind to what you need.
What we want, what we need is all the same thing, yes.
Ow! Is the same thing? No! You listen to your mama now.
This leads us into another great song in this movie, Dig a Little Deeper. It's a little different than the other songs because the others have more of a jazz sound and feel to them, while this one sounds and feels more gospel. I think it's a lot of fun to listen to, and the words can be a little bit, they have a little bit of a double meaning. Tiana takes them as meaning dig a little deeper and as in work a little harder. No, it's dig a little deeper into who you are. And that's where the one line of the song comes in, when you find out who you are, you'll find out what you need. And I think that's a pretty great line. Unfortunately, they don't quite get the message that Mama Odie is trying to teach them. So she gives them another answer. To become human again, Naveen needs to kiss a princess. Well, the question is, where are they going to find a princess? That's why it didn't work the first time, was because Tiana is not a princess. Well, there is one answer. Lottie's dad, Big Daddy, has been appointed king of the Mardi Gras, which makes her a princess. That's enough to count, but only until midnight when Mardi Gras is over. So they hurry on a riverboat back to New Orleans, but they're all doing some serious thinking by now. Naveen had originally planned to marry Lottie and inherit her fortune. He doesn't want to do that anymore. He's up for the idea of just giving up the lifestyle he had been living and helping and just being with Tiana, but he realizes how much her dream means to her.
If I don't deliver that money first thing tomorrow, I lose this place forever.
At this point, he's thinking he has to go through with marrying Lottie just to get the money for Tiana. This is the first time we've ever seen him be willing to make a sacrifice like that. Worst timing possible, because the shadow people come and they find him on that boat and they take him away. Meanwhile, Ray reveals to Tiana that Naveen plans to marry her. She's overjoyed until she sees who she thinks is Naveen marrying Lottie.
What are we looking for again?
You just keep your eyes out for the biggest, gaudiest float with a Mardi Gras princess about to kiss herself.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here tonight in this fine celebration to join together.
Ray finds out the truth and is able to get the talisman with Naveen's blood to Tiana as well as free Naveen. He fights valiantly against the shadow creatures, which makes a lot of sense because he's a firefly. They, can emit light, and shadows don't do well in light. But the problem is he's still a little guy, and Facilier is able to be more than a match for him. Thankfully, Ray was able to get Facilier's talisman to Tiana before it was too late. Facilier has to get that back. If that's destroyed, he has no chance of paying his debt back to his friends on the other side. He offers Tiana what she always wanted. He gives her a vision of her dream restaurant, everybody coming there to eat, but Naveen's not in it. And she realizes what's really most important, especially when he reminds her of her father and how he never got his dream. But Tiana remembers what her mother said earlier, and that is what really matters.
But he had what he needed. He had love. He never lost sight of what was really important.
Easy with that. Careful.
And neither will I.
It looks like Facilier is going to get his talisman back when his shadow grabs it, but when Tiana's turned back into a frog, she uses a few skills that comes with, and that's what ultimately saves the day.
I got news for you, Shadow Man. It's not slime. It's mucus.
No! How am I ever gonna pay back my debt?
Facilier is dragged away, and we're left with an image of him screaming on a tombstone. We can only guess what his friends on the other side are putting him through. But that doesn't mean it's a happy ending yet. Lottie is overjoyed that Tiana and Naveen have found each other, and she's so happy for them that she's willing to kiss Naveen to break the spell whether she gets to marry him or not. She's like, you two belong together, this is wonderful. You don't have to marry me, Naveen, I'm gonna kiss you anyway. And she does, but they missed the midnight deadline. And on top of that, Lewis brings Ray to them just in time for them to watch him die. They have a funeral for him, and this leads to grief turning to joy when they see what happens to Ray now. Ray has always loved Evangeline, and now he gets to be with her forever. She's the same star who everyone's always wished on, and now Ray's wish is granted. And this leads to some interesting questions. Do all fireflies become stars? If they do, does that mean that Evangeline was once a firefly? A lot of speculation there, but even if we don't get to hear too much from Evangeline's standpoint, their love story is really a great one, I think. Evangeline actually gets her name from a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow about two lovers that were separated. So, little romantic side note there. Speaking of romance, Tiana and Naveen get married by Mama Odie, and this is exactly what they needed all along.
Like I told y'all, kissing a princess breaks the spell. Once you became my wife, that made you
A princess. You just kissed yourself a princess.
And I'm about to do it again.
This ties in so perfectly with the what you want versus what you need idea. All they wanted was to be human again. What they needed was each other. It ends happily. They have a second wedding for their families to come to. Tiana gets her restaurant with a little help of some intimidation from Louis for them to accept her money. Everybody ends up happily, and we get the fairy tale ending that all classic Disney movies have. I really enjoyed this movie. I hope you did too. If you haven't seen it already, give it a watch. And until next time, remember the magic.